And instead of trying to control the other person, really exploring it and seeing how we can dance together willingly, wanting to, not because we feel forced or controlled. It wasn't until these last 7 years, me building a life with Vanessa, where I started to realize, oh, I have not done this in other relationships. I have subtly tried to get people to love me in the way that I want them to, or I would not define it as love. So love, to be effective, must speak the dialect the other person understands. I like this because imagine that you guys literally are speaking different love languages and you're trying to communicate, right? One person's speaking Chinese, the other one's speaking Spanish. For many people, that's how they love each other, just different languages, and then each refusing to learn the other person's language.
I'm John Kim, a licensed therapist who used to be a miserable fuck before going on a hero's journey and turning expired relationships into revelations. I use my story to help others come with you instead of at you, unrehearsed on purpose, because self-help doesn't have to be polished or complicated, just honest.
So I just got a shower, and in Costa Rica, you're always going to the shower, coming out of the shower, washing off sand, etc. And I just ran around the house naked for a second, like my 5.5-year-old does. And I flirted with my partner, and she was spontaneous with me. You could fill in the blanks. We didn't have sex or make it a big deal. It was just kind of a spontaneous gesture. And it's also something that is more my love language than hers, and she knows this, which made it more important, meaningful, and sexy to me. So it got me thinking how important knowing your partner's love language is. I just think it's mandatory in every relationship. And also, I know what my partner desires. So I'm not just talking about like intimacy, connection, but in a relationship, because she's more acts of service and I'm more words of affirmation. She's also more swings toward avoidantly attached. I swing toward anxious. And what's really important is that you know how your partner receives and gives love, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should abandon self or compromise self to love your partner in a way that they prefer. There is a cadence, a dance, a compromise, of course, but there shouldn't be a compromise of self, right? But it is imperative to know your partner's love language. And I even kind of like hesitate to use the concept love language because I feel like that book, is it called The Five Love Languages? That classic book, and I think it was written maybe in the 90s. I think it could limit us. There's a brilliance to the concept of love languages because it's especially, like it's been helpful for me to see and understand how my partner and I prefer to love and receive love. I think that's super important. And that's kind of what I want to highlight today. But I also think that those concepts can pigeonhole you and can put people in boxes. And I think there's a danger in that. I was reminded because it wasn't just the spontaneous action. It was her knowing that that is how I like to be loved. I mean, one way is being spontaneous, right? Because she knows that that's something that I enjoy, her meeting me there, that is what's important, right? And even before this, she was doing work today, and I know she wants space to work, and it's a Saturday, and I told her, go do whatever you want to do. I will take Logan, our daughter, and I'll take her swimming, or I'll take her to the beach. The beach where we live is literally the backyard, right? So I know that that's something that would mean a lot to her. So that's kind of I would say, it's not an extension. It's not a negotiation. It's just me knowing that about her, that she would appreciate it. And so me loving her in that way, and there's no compromise in self. This is just like, oh, here's what you need. Let me help give you that, right? And it got me kind of thinking, because I felt emotional after I came out of the shower naked just fucking around doing my little risky business routine because no one's around, and you know, the windows, or look at the windows wide open, and being silly. And then her, instead of rejecting that or ignoring it, meeting me there, and then her participating in her own way, in a fun, flirty way, in what she feels comfortable with. So when that happened, I almost got emotional because it means so much to me. And then it got me thinking about the importance of knowing your partner's love language, and why, I mean, I feel like it's mandatory in every relationship. Listen, number one, love isn't generic. It's personalized, right? We all have different emotional blueprints, and they're shaped by childhood, culture, trauma, and experience. Assuming your partner feels loved the way you feel loved is a recipe for miscommunication. And this is something that in many of my relationships before, I would put on my partner. And if my partner didn't love me in the way that I wanted, I thought she didn't love me. I thought she didn't care about me, right? It wasn't until I met Vanessa, it wasn't until we started exploring this and the way that we love, the way that we show up, because we're very different. And instead of trying to control the other person, really exploring it and seeing how we can dance together willingly, wanting to, not because we feel forced or controlled. It wasn't until these last 7 years, me building a life with Vanessa, where I started to realize, oh, I have not done this in other relationships. I have subtly tried to get people to love me in the way that I want them to, or I would not define it as love. So love, to be effective, must speak the dialect the other person understands. I like this because imagine that you guys literally are speaking different love languages and trying to communicate, right? One person speaking Chinese, the other one's speaking Spanish. For many people, that's how they love each other, just different languages, and then each refusing to learn the other person's language. Number two, it prevents the I'm giving everything, but it's not enough trap. Do you know what trap I'm talking about? Like, I'm doing everything that I can, but the person is just not enough. And early on, and we put this in our book, It's Not Me, It's You, which gives me permission to share it. One of the false beliefs that Vanessa pulled from, because I created space where she probably felt this way, is that she wasn't enough in the relationship. And one of the false beliefs that I had was that I don't feel desired, right? And it wasn't true. It was our perception. It wasn't that she didn't desire me, but it was because she didn't desire me in a way that I wanted her to. I labeled it as, oh, I'm not desired, or I'm not desirable, or she doesn't desire me, right? And of course, I think Vanessa is enough and more. But because of my reaction to that, she felt, oh, I'm not enough then, right? And so that pattern created drift, created conflict. We noticed it, worked through it, and then, of course, we now understand each other better. But many people, they ignore that because they're not aware of it, and then it's what breaks up the relationship. It prevents the I'm giving everything, but it's not enough trap. What I'm saying is, if you know your partner's love language, then it prevents this pattern of false beliefs and people's false beliefs, which can crack the container of the relationship. And listen, a lot of our false beliefs stem from our own story, you know, our own experiences, childhood. One of the most common breakdowns I see in couples therapy, both partners are trying but missing each other, right? There's like a miscommunication. There's a jumping to conclusions. There's a unawareness of the pattern and why this pattern is happening. Many times, especially in couples therapy, I notice that people aren't seeing truth. They're seeing the situation through their own lens, based on their own wiring, their own story, their own childhood. And so the magnet flips, and people are just, they're not meeting each other, and there's just nothing but disagreement. And it just feels like one person's speaking Chinese, the other person's speaking Spanish, right? And nothing gets resolved. You really have to take a step back and see truth, not judge how you feel. And because you feel a certain way, you think that's true, right? Example, you're showing love through gifts, but they crave quality time, right? I'm just using this as a simple example, so your effort feels invisible to them. So in our story, early on, because I'm a big words of affirmation, if I would write her notes, I don't know, like just lovey-dovey shit, and I didn't get that back in that form, I would feel like, oh, she doesn't love me, she doesn't care about me. I would judge her based on her return if it's not the same as what I did for her, right? The truth is, that's not how she shows up in relationships and love. The way that she shows love is more acts of service, right? That's how she interprets, and that's how she prefers to show love. Now, because she knows I'm a words of affirmation person, or because she knows that that's one of my love languages, she makes an effort. And so even if it doesn't match mine, right, it doesn't have to be a long poem, but even if it's just a little note, I know that that's her trying. And that's for me to meet her there with love and compassion and gratitude, knowing that, oh, this is not how she usually shows love, but she's making an effort here. She's stretching without losing herself. And I think it's important to know that, because then you know that your partner is really working on the relationship and trying, right? And vice versa, for your partner to know that. So for me, acts of service isn't really a love language, but if I pick up lunch for her, or if I in any way make her life easier, I know that means so much to her, right? So I will do what I can in a way that's honest to me to love her in that way, because I know it matters to her. Does that make sense? 3, it deepens emotional safety when we understand and know how our partners prefer to be loved. And I'm saying preferred, not has to, right? There's no ultimatums here. It gets people to feel seen. And when people feel seen, they soften, they trust, they feel held. Understanding how your partner receives love builds trust and reduces defensiveness, right? It signals, oh, I get you, I'm paying attention. Number 4, it reduces resentment and emotional exhaustion. A lot of times we have resentment that builds like plaque because we feel like we're putting in all this effort because we're loving in a way that is honest to us. We expect our partner to do the same, and we expect our partner to match the way that we are loving them. And it doesn't match because they love differently. And instead of accepting that, we judge it and we say, oh, okay, so I'm putting in 90%, you're putting in 10, right? Or I'm putting in more than you. And that is not true, but that's how we see it because our partner isn't loving us in the way that we want them to. And so this creates resentment, and this creates false narrative. And then this creates drift. Any kind of resentment you're holding is going to eventually, and it just could be a little bit, right? Like, it's not like someone has to, it's not like resentment from people cheating. It could be resentment, like just subtle things, and built over time, it creates cracks. And I would say the subtle stuff that we kind of sweep under the rug is more dangerous than the big things, because the big things, when you have that resentment, that's obvious, and you end up talking about it, you end up working it out, or you don't. But the resentment that is kind of subtle, that isn't worth talking about, and just kind of whatever, it is what it is, that kind of stuff, that will get the whole house of cards to crumble because it builds. Suddenly you have cavity, and you can't fix the cavities. You got to pull the tooth out, right? 4, it reduces resentment and emotional exhaustion. Like I just said, misaligned love efforts create burnout, giving without return. Learning each other's love languages maximizes energy and minimizes confusion. It's, basically understanding the other person as well as yourself. All right. Number 5, it strengthens knowing your partner's love language, how your partner prefers to give and receive love. It strengthens intimacy and connection. This is also a note to self. Intimacy isn't just physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's energetic, it's spiritual, it's collaborative, right? There's co-creating an intimacy. It's not, this is how I define intimacy and you're not meeting me there. That was me, and it's something I still struggle with, right? Here's how I see intimacy. Here's how I prefer it. And you're not meeting me there, which means that you don't desire me, or you're not putting in the work. All these false accusations. Speaking your partner's love language bridges the gap between we coexist and we deeply connect. Number 6, it helps during conflict repair. Knowing how your partner receives love, right? Understanding that gives you a powerful tool for repair when things break down, right? It's basically understanding your partner more. It's not just what you say after a fight, it's how you make them feel safe and loved again. This is so big. Most couples don't have the ability to repair. There's going to be ruptures in every relationship. I don't care how good and strong your relationship is. We're human. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be ruptures, right? And I think if there is never conflict or ruptures, then people are in denial or someone in a relationship is abandoning themselves, or not wanting to rock the boat. So they are, muting themselves or their voice, or it's only been 2 weeks and you guys are in the honeymoon age, right? At the honeymoon stage. There's going to be eruptions. So it's not about how many times you fight, it's about how you fight, and getting your partner to feel safe and loved and understood is what's prescribed. That is the ointment, that is the soil, that is what's going to repair. It's not about what you're fighting about. It's making your partner's nervous system feel safe, and how you get there is on you. It depends on the situation, right? But that's an ability. That's an ability. That's not just on your partner to a certain extent. Some of it is, but it's also you creating a space for that. I was reminded, I'm hesitant to share this, but fuck it. I was dating someone. She told me early on, hey, listen, if I ever get mad at you, if we get into a fight, I want you to just like hold me. I just want you to literally physically just get up and hold me, and you will notice I will calm down. I will feel better. I'll be less reactive, right? So she gave me this information. I said, yeah, sure, of course. And then we got into this fight and I didn't do it because we're arguing and it was kind of like aggressive. And so I just kind of sat there and she said, look at you. I told you to come fucking hold me and you're not doing it. And I remember like being stunned and thinking, well, if you're demanding me to hold you and cussing at me, how can I desire to hold you? And it was such a strange moment where I knew logically what she needed, but I didn't want to give that to her because she also was not being kind and creating a space for me to do that. So it was kind of like both of our faults. And I remember just kind of like us sitting in our corners of the ring, not budging, knowing what the problem is, and both of us. So it was so difficult for us to like actually extend, even though we both knew what the solution was, right? Eventually I walked over and I held her and I noticed like, wow, then she just melted and the fight was resolved. So yes, she was absolutely right. She knows herself and that's what she wanted. But also if she's saying it in a way that's demanding and she's cursing at me and also calling me names, it's very hard for me to be the bigger person, right? All right, number 7, it future-proofs the relationship. Needs evolve, but the habit of asking, right? What makes you feel most loved? And when's the last time you asked your partner that, if you're in a relationship or in your previous relationship? When was the last time you asked your partner, hey, what makes you feel most loved? It's something that we don't ask, right? Creates a relationship that adapts over time. I think it's important to not just check in with your partner and like how they're doing in life, but like what turns you on now? Because people change, people evolve. We have different cravings, fantasies, and how we want to be loved. Or maybe your partner's touched out and they don't want love in that way anymore. One of the things that I need to take responsibility for is choosing my partner of being someone different or loving in a different way than when I first met her, which isn't fair because I met her 7 years ago. She is also a mom now. We go through life transitions. Of course, she's not going to love me exactly in the same way she did when we first met because she's not the same person, right? And neither am I. And so it's not fair to put that on your partner. Because I remember I would think like, oh, wait, you said false advertising? This isn't what I signed up for? Because remember you used to love me like this and now you don't? Well, yeah, because we grow and we change, It's not fair. And it's also not fair for Vanessa to tell me, hey, you're not loving me like you used to. Because I also grow, change, and evolve and put different weight on love and have new definitions, right? So ultimately, we have to talk about where we are today, do check-ins. What are your preferences? How have you changed? What are you putting weight on? What's your definition of love? At the end of the day, it's all about understanding each other better in the here and now today, not trying to trace something that was in the past or putting pressure on the person to be different, which I struggle with. And I don't do it obviously. I notice I do it kind of subtly and then I catch myself. Number 8 is it's a tool for emotional regulation, not just romance. Receiving love in a way, in a language that resonates, helps regulate the nervous system, right? Think co-regulation. So like in the example that I just mentioned when I opened this episode, and if you listen to my podcast, I'm very kind of in the moment and I try to capture when I have the revelation, I try to capture the urgency, the purity of my discovery. as fast as I can, right? So this is why the story I just shared about me coming out of the shower naked, being silly and playful, and then Vanessa meeting me there for a minute. John, why did you have to say for a minute? Why are you saying that it has to be longer? No. I'm not saying that. I just said for a minute. I think I said for a minute because I don't want you to think that we suddenly like had an afternoon of passion and that's not what happened. It's just my point is that it was just a moment, but in that moment was enough and it was meaningful to me. It just happened. It just happened 30 minutes ago. And in that moment, I felt co-regulated. In that moment, I shared myself feeling regulation, and then I expressed to her what that meant to me and how much I appreciated it, which hopefully made her feel a little more regulated. Like there was a connection, there was a coming together and understanding, there was an exchange that created two people feeling safe, desired, understood, and like, yeah, we're in this, we're together, we're connected, you know? Insecure attachment and emotional wounding heal faster in an environment where love is understood. Let me say that again. Insecure attachment and emotional wounding heals faster in an environment where love is understood, where people feel understood. All right, number 9, knowing your partner's love language, how they prefer to give and receive love, reinforces daily micro connections. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And this is why I'm doing this episode right after it happened. It was a micro connection. That's what it was, right? The little things matter more than the grand gestures. For me, I'm trying to think if this would mean more to me than, us scheduling some staycation, like this big event. It's because I feel like it's in the little micro moments, that you're reminded. It's in the micro moments where you're also not planning or expecting, where you feel valuable, heard, understood, desired. It's like getting something when you're not asking for it. And I know that sounds kind of like, what do you mean getting something? Maybe it's not the right term because you shouldn't be like, I don't want to dissect it. But yeah, when you're not expecting it, right? So the little things matter more than grand gestures. Knowing your partner's love language turns everyday moments into bonding rituals. A back rub, an unexpected compliment, or simply putting your phone down. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to do something for your partner without your partner asking. It doesn't matter what love language you speak. This is universal. It could be a back rub. It could be, I brought you lunch. It could be, I wrote you a poem. It could be, hey, I'm just thinking about you. It could be a text. But anything that is unexpected, it just goes so much further. And finally, 10, because without it, and by it, I mean knowing and understanding how your partner prefers to give and receive love, you're just guessing. And I would actually add, you're not just guessing, you're probably loving your partner in a way you loved your previous partner or partners, which isn't fair to your current partner, right? You're trying to put them in a box or maybe unconsciously mold them. Relationships based on assumption are fragile. Love is not just an emotion, it's a skill. And one of the most foundational skills is knowing how to show up in a way that lands. How to show up in a way that lands. And I got to say that lands for you. So you're not abandoning self. That's honest to you. Even if you are extending, that's okay. Because relationships are, to a certain extent, about compromise, just not compromise of self. And in a way that lands for your partner. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. If anything, just a reminder. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share it. Be well.